I'll start with the updates. As many of you probably know, or if not, have on the blog post, earlier this month, we expanded the partner program, which is the way for writers to basically earn money on Medium by writing stories, putting them behind the paywall. And we expanded that capability to now include 77 new countries. So we have quite a few, over 100 countries out there now supported. And if you saw this and you tried to enroll in the last week or two and it didn't work, that was probably because we were rolling it out slowly to make sure there were no glitches and bugs. But it is 100% now. You can go to medium.com/partner-program and see the enrollment form, and you should be able to find your country in that list. And thanks, Elvina, for sharing that blog post and for writing it as well. So 77 new countries. The reason that this, we released 77 and not 100 and not 50 is because our philosophy with the partner program is to support as many countries as we can. So we're not making the choice anymore about whether or not a country should be in the partner program or not explicitly at least. And what I mean by that is we're using Stripe to handle the way that we connect to people in countries around the world. And those countries are all different and it's very complicated, but Stripe takes away some of that complexity and allows us to basically transfer money to your bank. And that's where we basically try to support every country that Stripe does. And as we looked, a bunch more had been added in the last year since we've been working on this. And that's why it's 77 instead of 60, which we announced last year when we first started doing this. So as time goes on, whenever Stripe adds a new country to this list of cross-border payouts, we'll turn them on. So very excited about that. And so far people have been enrolling and there haven't been any trouble with that. And if you have given it a try, I'd love to hear about how that experience went. So behind the scenes, what has happened? So the reason that it took us this long to add this capability rather than just seeing a checklist somewhere, a checkbox somewhere, is because the way to support this set of countries was different than the way we supported the previous countries. And one of the things that is implicated in that change or that difference is that there's a payment processor fee. So part of the complexity of this is that from now on, anyone that's enrolling past the date of August 5th, using Stripe Express in one of these countries is going to have a small payment processor fee removed from your earnings, and that goes directly to Stripe. But we don't keep it. It's just for us to use the service. And so for that reason, we instituted a new $10 minimum on payouts. So when you earn a cent, for example, which I do sometimes, it would, if we hadn't done this $10 minimum, it would mean that we would pay $3 or something for the privilege of sending you a penny. And we just figured that that's bad business sense. And also there's reasons to batch it a little bit and combine payments so that you actually get a larger chunk of the earnings that way. So this is a new change. It will show up on the payout that happens in the first week of September. So this is still, you could say, in the rollout because the final part of the product hasn't been experienced by you yet, but we're trying to make sure that we are as transparent as we can about why we're making that change. And hopefully you'll understand, and it will allow, this is basically what allows us to expand to these countries. So those are the major changes. Under the hood, there's also a lot of other stuff. The partner program was launched in 2017. It's changed 4 times. And there has been a lot of, as a company that's, trying to build things quickly and ship them and always refine them over time, there have been some debt in the way that it was implemented. And so we did a lot to clean it up under the hood and make sure that all these payment pipelines were smooth and error-free and are going to be running much more consistently and bug-free going forward. So that's one of the big FAQs that we'll probably get to at the end is sort of like, why did it take a year to ship this? And that was part of the reason. At some point we decided, well, since it's going to take a little bit longer to support Stripe anyway, let's do the right thing and fix this. So we plan to be around for a while. Let's just make sure that it's built in a way that is a high enough quality bar for us to justify relying on our business with it. So that's the update. I don't know if there are any questions about that before we move on, but if there aren't, I'll just move on. I wanted to speak to a couple other things that have happened in the last year. So for some of you might have been here at the Medium Day last year, which was right when we announced the last big change to the partner program, which was a bigger one. It was really about changing the incentives under the hood for what we pay out and changing it from what had been the case of around time read and making it a more holistic, quality-centric algorithm that would attempt to not only weigh things in a way that geared us towards quality, but also integrated with the boost so that we can pay more for stories that were boosted. And this is a very intentional thing that we could talk about in the next section a little bit. But as this year has gone by, we have continued to adjust this over time. We're always looking at the top earning stories, the top earning authors, and there's a small group of us that every month review this and look and say, like, is this getting us closer to our mission or further from our mission? And we make adjustments as we go. Part of that adjustment is increasing the budget as we grow. Part of it is about tweaking the weights of different variables. Part of it is also, actually a big part of it is also catching inauthentic use and spam and fraud, impersonation, all kinds of things that any system that doles out money in any way is going to be sort of get the attention of people that are just trying to siphon money away without adding value to the system. So I think the last update we gave was in March, but this effort to clean our system, make sure that there aren't people just posting hundreds of stories every day that are AI generated and creating fake members that all engage with the same stories, that kind of thing. We've gone from it being a pretty big problem back in February and March to getting a handle of it on it around May. And these days it's a lot more maintainable. And that's part of why, again, delaying this launch as we expand to more and more countries. We just want to make sure that all of the things that we're doing by hand, one person doing it every single month, or two people as it's been, but these scale with our expansion of the partner program. So I know there are going to be a lot of other questions around, what are the second order effects of adding more people to the partner program? Is it going to affect my earnings? Is it going to affect Medium? Is it going to allow more fraud to happen? I want to definitely address that later on. But for now, I'll just mention that that's been a big part of what we've been working on this last year. And I feel very confident that we have the advantage when we are trying to moderate this kind of behavior. And so far, all of the indications look like they're going towards it being becoming less and less of a problem going forward. And we did go into a bit more detail in a blog post in March. I think that was about what exactly we're doing to classify things as AI generated or just low quality inauthentic engagement circles, that kind of thing. And there's a lot of nuance there, so I want to be careful in how I talk about it. And so if you have specific questions about that nuance, I would love to tease that out a little bit. Okay, so the spam and fraud update, that was a big part. Another thing that we did this last year is we really, when we launched last August, I would say the support on the stats product was not up to par for our desired level of quality. We were changing so much under the hood, and those changes didn't really surface to the top of the stats around minutes read, views, reads, engagements. And so when we launched with the bare minimum to support that change. And over the last year, we've updated the stats page for your stories, the stats homepage, so that now views and reads are consistent with what you see on the stats home, or the stats story stats page. And we also added and improved the publication stats. And if you run a publication and you haven't seen the new stats for them, they were always a little bit hidden. They're now so much more improved. They're more consistent with how we do story stats. You can see stats across all your stories that you're published. And we support them on mobile. So you can now view your publication stats and your story stats on mobile in a very sort of consistent way. That's great. There's still a lot more to do there, but it has been a consistent effort throughout the year to make that consistent with how the partner program works. We want you to have as much information and context and sort of feedback loops as necessary for you to basically see how your stories are behaving on the site, because that's how we get better. Okay, so that's the third thing, stats. I'd love any feedback you have on those things. And I think that's all I really wanted to cover in the updates portion. But I do also want to say, because it's been such a long year, it's been grueling for some of us because we wanted to launch a lot of these things earlier. And we also wanted to launch them in a way that we're proud of. And so I thank the whole team here at Medium, and I think all of you guys out there who had the patience and waited, were able to bear with us as we took our time. We never spent any time on a break from working on this. So it was really just a matter of us being able to get all the work done. So I have a quick question from Larry, I see here. My earnings on some stories are higher, even though they have far fewer views and reads. Why would this be? Well, there's lots of reasons why. So one of them could be that earnings, there is no direct mapping of engagement, especially views and earnings. What we really do is try to identify engagements that are indicative of high quality. So one of those is being whether or not it's boosted will definitely increase your earnings for that story. And another one is if it has a high read ratio. So if you have a higher read ratio than the average, those reads will be worth more. And so that's another reason why. That said, there's also different weights for different engagements. It's not just reads, it's also highlights, claps, responses, follows, and all kinds of things. So I would discourage people from trying to reverse engineer exactly how that's calculated, because ultimately what we're trying to do is really point you towards not thinking about that correlation, just really focusing on the quality of the story. And ideally in the future, as we continue to refine this, that will be like the reward is like when you feel it truly like spend more time on a story and it resonates with your audience, that's when that story will get more earnings. But I know that's easier said than done. And as a person who is obsessed with metrics and analytics myself, it might even be impossible for this to happen, but ultimately this is really necessary for us, because anytime the algorithm for earning can be deduced by someone and made simpler and operationalized, it can be abused. And that's why every month we look into the top earning stories and earnings, and we'll always shift things around so that anything that seems like it's being turned into a gaming, not gaming, but like trying to extract more value than they're putting in, paying more attention to earnings than to what the stories are really about, then we'll shift things. So definitely, if there's more, I'm happy to answer more questions along those lines too. But ultimately, it's like a disconnect is there on purpose. And one thing I want to say is like I just wanted to really thank the team at Medium that we only have about 5 engineers and 2 designers and a content person and myself and user services. Like there's a handful of us. We all are very much thinking about the state in the doubt. And I wish we could all sort of be on this meeting and see the team, because they're the ones doing all the work at the end of the day, and especially at the last push of a project. It's been really inspiring. So a few minutes in this meeting from our team. Thanks. Okay. Any other questions? I'll move on. So this next one, this is my indulgent section. I love the details. I also love talking about the philosophy of the partner program. I think that there is so much that is just nice and a joy to be able to work on a product that is truly in service of its customers, like it's writers and members and editors. Like truly, we get to come in and think about ways to help writers write better stories, help editors create more successful publications, help members read better stories. And the reason that we're able to do this is in the design of the partner program itself. And part of that is me to say is it's one piece of a bigger puzzle. If you go to medium.com/partner program, there's a little marketing blurb there that we wrote, but I just want to read it to you again because there's an important nuance here that I want to call out. The partner program is for people who are interested in helping us/Medium fulfill our mission of deepening the collective wisdom of the world through personal expression, knowledge sharing, and storytelling. So this feature, this thing that looks like a way to sign up to earn money, in some ways has been pitched like that, is really a partnership, right? It's really a contract between us, between Medium and writers, where we mutually agree to work on this mission of deepening our understanding of the world, unlocking the collective wisdom of the world, improving people's lives through self-expression, that kind of thing, storytelling, art, creative pursuits. And the money is there as a mechanism, not as the point. And I say that from the Medium side. It's always necessary, but not sufficient in this case. And the mission is important to call out because if you understand this part of how we're doing this, you'll understand a lot of decisions we make. The partner program is an incentive. So there's multiple incentives, multiple ways that we can influence the world. If I attended one of the earlier sessions. I don't know if anyone was in Roger Martin's session, but he talked about strategy, and I really liked the way he said something. He said that strategy is a set of choices. Like a lot of people confuse strategy with planning or features or something, but it's really a set of choices that we make, that Medium makes. He used slightly different words here, but I'll say this is how I interpreted it. Set of choices that we make to incentivize or inspire people to create a different world than the one we live in by default. Medium is here to change the information economy. It's here to change the attention economy. It's here to change how we go about our days, how we feel about what we're reading, how we feel about the people we're connecting with, and coming away with a more inspired, hopeful, deeper understanding of people that are different from us. And we're trying to push that forward. And that's why the partner program isn't just trying to reward engagement. Most of the earning systems in the world, especially around content, aren't trying to change the world. They're trying to extract value from the world, right? They're trying to take what's already happening and earn money on it. And that is a strategy, but it's not our strategy. We actually are trying. So when we often get a criticism, it's like, why don't you just simplify it and let people do whatever they want and pay for whatever they want to pay? That's the saying, build it around the default behavior of the world. And we don't want to just extract value from the world. We want to actually change it. And that's why there are parts of the partner program that are counterintuitive sometimes, especially if you're thinking about it from a purely business or economic lens. We will sometimes boost stories that we know won't reach a broad audience. Like we will boost stories because they add something to a community, because they're exceptional. And that's what we want to incentivize, more of that. And it may not pay off today or tomorrow. It'll help that writer, but like ultimately it will help our business in the long term by highlighting these stories that really become examples of the direction we want to go. Yeah, I just want to make that quick point. We are, for that reason, able to do things like, prefer quality over clickbait. We're able to do things like expand to all countries because we're not trying to just, like a lot of places would do an analysis, like which countries will we get the most members from or something like that. We can just be available to everyone because the people that are going to write the best stories are hidden everywhere and we just need to find them. Okay, wait, I see a question here. Any changes with friends of Medium? Yes. So the way that if you are a reader and you are a friend of Medium, every time you read, engage, view with the story that's behind the paywall, that writer, that story will earn more, 4 times more than what it would have otherwise gotten. So it's a way of supporting writers more. For the same amount of reading and engagement and stuff, you're sending more money to these writers that you are enjoying. So that's built deeply into the incentive structure of the partner program. There's also, I believe, this is not directly tied to the partner program, but one of my favorite parts of the Friends of Medium thing is when you share a link to a paywalled story, you can give access, you can share it broadly, even to people that aren't members, and they will still earn money through that because now it's basically saying you're sending people to the story, and on behalf of your friendship membership, that writer will still earn money, and that's great. It's another way to support writers that I think is in line with everyone's interests. Okay, I see another question. Let's see. This question might sound silly, but is there a certain time of the month when you make tweaks to the algorithm? Also, let's see. Yes, there is. I mean, it's usually at the beginning of the month. We usually try to do it so that we can look at month-to-month comparisons. But yeah, so that's when we do them. We will plan them and talk about them all along, but usually release them at the beginning of the month. That said, so the second part of your question was just so writers can understand why something seemingly changes drastically from one day to the next. Our ability to pattern match and guess that how things are changing when I almost 100% of the time has been incorrect when trying to guess when the partner program is changing and how. So there have been a few times when they have actually been correct, but by and large they've been incorrect. And that's the reason for this is because there's way more variation in how earnings are allocated to stories than there is variation in how the algorithm itself works. One story will have a much different engagement profile than the next, and to compare them, especially when some of those things are magnifiers, it doesn't work. That said, I always enjoy hearing from people that are experiencing a change because it is a complicated system, and sometimes we do need to look into things. But yeah, I think this is why I'm trying to share the philosophy, because if you understand our approach to it, you will quickly be able to cross off a lot of the hypotheses about what has changed, like things like we're trying to take more money from writers or anything like. There's just no incentive for us to do that, because we know that the more we pay writers, especially for their best stories, the more members we get and the more money the whole business gets, and the more then we can send to writers. And it's a virtuous cycle that is really at the core of why we're growing right now. Is we're excited when we can send more money to writers because that incentivizes them to write more high quality stories, and that incentivizes members to stick around more. It increases the diversity of the platform, increases the reach, and everybody benefits. So okay, but happy to go into more detail there if you want to add another question there. Another question is, will PayPal be supported soon? Not on payouts. I would say not soon. Now that we've exhausted the supported countries on the Stripe side, we are beginning to explore other alternative options there, like Payoneer and a few others. And we want to do that because for us, the more countries that are supported, the better. Yeah, but PayPal is not on that list right now. Okay, so that was the philosophy part. I will say, just to going back to the puzzle piece analogy, the partner program is one piece of many at Medium. I would say it's not doing the job alone. There are from there, you can imagine that there's many different ways that we can incentivize high quality stories from authors. One of them is, first we have to even define what high quality is, right? We have to have so many conversations about what we mean, because like it's not taste, because each of us comes with our own taste and our own preferences about what we like, what we don't like. And it's also, related to subject matter expertise. It's related to the audience. And so we're always hashing out, where we want to draw the line on this stuff, and what gets boosted, what gets sort of preferred in the partner program algorithm. And so this is a process that's going to continue to refine and improve over time. And as we scale, it's going to be, a learning experience for everyone. So understanding how to define quality, then building the mechanisms for identifying and nominating and reviewing and approving stories, that's another piece of the puzzle that is completely separate from partner program, but impacts it as well. And all these things are around like, how do we source the kinds of stories that point us towards the mission that we want to reach? And then there's about, once we've identified them, how do we distribute them? How do we make sure that the right people see them at the right time, and that we use this in a way to actually expand the reach and the earnings and the value of stories that are otherwise would have been left behind. In any other platform, they would live and die based on some other quality. But here we can really lift up these stories that we think are exemplary and sort of fit the Venn diagram of our mission and the needs, like the interests of members and writers. So we're always iterating on this too, like the feeds that you see, the emails that you get, how publications work, and how stories within publications will be distributed. We're really thinking about all this stuff constantly, and it's a key part of this. And then you can sort of think of the partner program as the engine behind it that is really just supplying the energy and the incentives for writers, as well as Boost. The way that Boost works is you're distributing reach instead of money, and ideally these systems are working in coordination with one another, and that will continue to evolve over time. So lots of different pieces. It really takes all of Medium to support the mission, and this is just one piece. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, I will sort of talk about a few frequently asked questions that I've gotten a lot of that we can then, but start thinking, what would you like to know? How could we help, you feel more, have more permission to write the best stories, to curate the best stories, to start that publication that is, a new small niche community around something that you care deeply about. Recruiting new writers, because ultimately a lot of us are here to sort of build a sense of belonging and community around our the things that we value the most. So ask any questions that you think would help you doing those things, or more technical ones are as well. Okay, got another question. Here we go. I'll leave out the compliment part. Is there any plan to create more touch points, town halls between Medium and its writers throughout the year in a live question format to help guide writers and help us understand why certain changes have happened? Posts seem to get missed in the deluge of posts. Okay, yeah. So you're asking more ways for us to connect with you all. Yeah, I mean, we do a number of kinds of Zoom calls with groups of people, the Boost notators, people in the writers communities. Also, just whenever there's a hot topic that we feel is easier to talk through, we love doing them. If you have any suggestions for ways to topics or communities to do that with, definitely suggest them, and we're open to that. Most of the team does love talking with people that are in the on the other side, because that's how we build the empathy and understanding that helps us build the right thing. So yes, post suggestions and we'll do more. Another question from Emma. I'm wondering if Medium has expectations, predictions, calculated estimates of how much bigger Medium will grow with the expanded partner program. Oh yeah, this is a good question. I'm a product manager, so building projections and estimates is part of how I add value to the team, since I can't write the code or do the designs. But yeah, so a couple interesting stats I'll share. when we expanded to the 77 new countries, we more than doubled the number of countries we support. And if you just take the population of these countries, we added about 3 billion people in the world to now, that's not quite the right way to do it, but it's just thinking like there's a lot of people in the world that can now, have access to the partner program, can have access to Medium's mission. But the more informed sort of estimate would be around of our active users, like where are people active in the world? And even if you look at that, we more than doubled the number of people that would have access. So I would say around doubling people in the partner program over time. It will take time because there's been 5 years of this for like more the previous countries, and now we're slowly adding support. But one of the things that we're going to learn over time, and it's inevitable, is that it's not just about access. It's about support. It's about language support. It's about having support in the Boost nomination program to like create publications, to solve problems in different that we haven't run into yet. This happened last year with like expanding in a lot of topics like memoir and poetry and humor. Like we weren't used to doing this, and so it took us a while to like adjust and support that in a way that was as evolved, as like refined as the way that we were doing for tech. And that's going to happen over and over again for us. That's part of the learning process and the iteration process. So that's double would be nice. I think it'll be a lot in the beginning, and then it will taper off, and then we'll expand as we begin to support them more. So, and for people that are, I think there's an implied question here. This is one of the FAQs: is how is this going to affect my earnings? If I'm already earning this much, and now other people come in, what's going to happen? And the thing that we have learned by looking at the data over and over again is that membership grows with partner program activity, and not only because membership is a requirement to become to enroll in the partner program now, but because building a community around a new subject or a new demographic or a new interest, new genre is going to bring people to Medium, and so those people more people are going to become a member for every one person that joins the partner program than it would take to displace them. Also, our budget is tied to our growth, and as we grow, that means more money for writers. And what will change is, which is good for everyone, I think, is the diversity of perspectives on any subject. So there might be, in an ideal world, like you go to a subject that you're really interested in, you might find a couple of publications there that really do a good job of sort of curating that space. And there might be more in the future. And that's another thing that I think will happen over time, is pressure to specialize in a very specific perspective and a very specific like angle into a subject area, which adds character and personality to the publications and the writing. Will be crucial, and probably, if I was on the other side right now, I would be thinking of areas of subject matters that don't have a great representation in publications yet, or in the Boost nomination program, or and filling that, because there's just so much opportunity, so many unserved subject areas I think out there. So pick one that is really specific and weird to you, and build it up, and that's going to be the best strategy for growing. Okay, good. I'm getting questions. Let me see. Let me back up a little bit. Could you consider opening APIs for authors to pull their story metrics? I'm a developer and would like to build improved dashboards that would provide better visibility to the performance of my stories. Yes. So like I mentioned, stats is an area where we're really still in catch up on this. And I would say that the APIs, so there's 2 ways to go about it. The thing that's holding us back from adding more data to the stats is not necessarily just building the feature. It's really collecting the data and making it align with how we want to use it. And so one of the things that I think is highest priority for this is adding presentations or impressions, or people call them different things, but every time we show a story to someone, whether or not they click on it and view it, I want writers to know that, because this is a good way of showing how things like, crafting a good title, preview, image, that kind of thing, that is just right, not too clickbaity, not too obscure and off sort of abstract, really will change your success for these things. And right now it's a black box for people. So I think things like that are probably first in line. And then if you have specific, what I would say, like with a question like this, if we were talking, I would ask, like, what are you trying to learn? And we'd think, like, how would we go about helping you learn that? And maybe that is APIs, but there's this balance between getting the data in there and then making it easier to access. And plus, like, yeah, I've built APIs and platforms. That's sort of what I've done in the past. And it's a different audience base. Like, we really want to be reaching a very diverse and broad group of people. And ideally, we can, by reaching them directly and making the insights as visible and accessible as possible, is our first priority. Hopefully that was an okay answer. Okay, another question. What is the ratio of paid members who are writers in the partner program compared to paid members who are readers only? So, I mean, there's a drastic, one of the things that I guess maybe where this is a good question is we do publish our number of members. We're over 1 million paying members. We're definitely not near 1 million writers, active writers. I mean, writing is hard. Even an active writer, to write multiple stories per month that are thoughtful and nuanced is hard. So we don't really even expect writers to write every month. But if we did this at the year level, it's like, how many members publish one story in a given year? I would say it's probably like, I'm guessing a little bit here, but I think it's around 1 to 10, like 10%. And do we count comments and responses in that? Do we count other things? There's a lot of ways to be active as a writer, but that is my guess. It's a lot less if we look at a given month. And we're not even trying to, like, we are definitely trying to increase the pool of people that are contributing stories to Medium and to the catalog, but that's why we're expanding into other countries. We want more of that stuff. We want to really solicit the best stories from people, but we're not really trying to turn every member into a writer. That's not our goal. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. Let's see. Yeah. When a story receives a boost, does all the boost distribution activity occur on a single day? Is there a schedule put in place for boosted story? That's different methods, channels will take place on successive days. It definitely doesn't take place on a single day. We actually want to spread it out because every part of what Boost does is it gets it in front of people that wouldn't have otherwise seen it, and it helps us get a sense for who actually wants to see the story. And so the slower we go to sometimes dole out the boost, the smarter we can do it each successive day. So we do have a schedule. We try to do most of it within the first 2 weeks. And if we don't do it in 2 weeks, we'll just continue. But most of them are trying to get there in 2 weeks. And I think that's what you're asking, right? Yeah. If we did it all at once, like if you do an ad on a lot of places, you just give them the budget, they'll just like blast it all out, 10 minutes. We're not going to do that because that doesn't allow us to be thoughtful about targeting, and we want to show the right story to the right people. And when stories are brand new, we don't always know that right out of the gate. That's a good question. Thanks for that. The boosted story doesn't appear to get a high number of reads, engagements. Can the author change the title or topics and turn on the boost distribution channels again? Right now, no. But ideally, I mean, this is another area of where the incentive cycle, editors, boost nominators are incentivized to help you succeed. And over time, they become better at identifying problems that might lead to lower engagement than that you could even fix before. nominating it. And I think that's like the system at its best, right? When everyone is incentivized to help each other make a better story. And then it gets here, and then we're like, okay, this is great. So let's show the people that need to see it. That is great. And like we're still early days in scaling that all out and having, you know, the network of nominators that can cover every publication, every story. But that's the goal. But that said, you know, what I hope, you know, one of the learning cycles for writers is maybe not for a given story, but the next story you might think more about the title and topics. So a lot of this is a learning curve that each writer goes through, each publication goes through, and that we're going through through each topic and subject. And you know, there's trends in how to talk about things, and those trends shift. And sometimes something that works on day one might not work on day 300. And sometimes optimizing your title can be the thing that makes it worse. And so I think we have to just accept that we're always learning and how to improve those things, and not try to feel like we have one shot at getting it right. Okay, so let's see. That's a long list of them. If you have any other ones, we have about, I guess, 10 minutes, and happy to answer more. If I could ask you all one question, I would love to hear from people that have joined recently, like just to get a sense for if you're in a country that was recently added, you know, how does it feel? Like I'd love to hear anything about like what you're going to do with that, but or if you have questions about how to get started with a new publication or as a boost nominator, this is going to help us a lot. No one asked anything about specific countries. I was anticipating some people asking about them. Maybe we addressed that in the beginning, but we are going to continue to add countries as Stripe supports them. And there's several countries that we really want to support. But you know, we ultimately are going to have to wait until Stripe does it. But they change it frequently. And yeah, let's see. See if I missed any in here. South Africa, nice. We saw a really great post from someone in Kenya. Are there any people that are not in the partner program that you know, are waiting for something other than the ability, which, you know, hopefully that was resolved for a lot of people in the last week, but you know, any other obstacles for people? Yeah, impressions and click-through rate. See, that's another one where if we give that information, then you can actually learn faster for things like title. And like oftentimes when people are like, why did no one see this story? And then I look at the stats that are like, how many people did we show it to? We showed it to a lot of people. So, and that's always humbling as a writer. Your immediate first thought is like, oh, it must be awful. But that's not the case. We all are, you know, always, you know, scanning lots of things and clicking on few. But by showing this information, at least we would allow people to like internalize that and learn. It's always fun looking at the stories that get the highest click-through rates, right? Sometimes it's for a good reason. Sometimes you go through a high click-through rate and then a low read ratio, and you sort of see that balance wasn't quite right. So the more we can open that up, the better. Yep. I know we've been talking about it for a while. We have the data now, and I think now that this is out, it's, you know, I'm being advised not to make any promises, but that's definitely something I feel like all of us would want to see out there. Taiwan, welcome. Oh, so Maureen, don't really grasp how medium works. Yeah, that's all, you know, at the end of the day, this is just a place to share your thoughts in life and what you're, you know, interested in. And I think it all starts to click when you join a publication, or you start writing for a publication, or start your own and recruit people to write with you, because all of this stuff, is better in the community where there's a dialogue happening. Okay, I think I got another one. Hold on. Have we considered giving writers the ability to A/B test titles? Yeah, but I don't think we're going to do this. I mean, part of the tension that we have is, because we want to be as open, like we really want people to feel like you don't have to be an expert content marketer to publish and be successful. And so oftentimes it feels like the more tools you give, and it's contradicting what I was saying earlier, but I think the best way is to learn from each other and to sort of level up our understanding of that fine balance between clickbait and like non-helpful titles and stuff. Because when we start A/B testing things, then we end up testing a lot of things that we know probably won't work, and we aren't as thoughtful. So I would say, like, pick the best title you can think of and then continue to try to improve. But I know there are ways to do this if you want. If same people read my stories regularly, will it be paid differently than a new person finding and reading my work? I was told this by another longtime member. It's complicated sometimes, but probably not. And paying too much attention to this is going to lead to the wrong conclusion. So I would say act as if every reader is going to read your story, and you'll be paid purely on their subconscious enjoyment of it. And the rest of it is a mystery, because the more you really fixate on the mechanisms of this, I think the more it takes you away from authentic just publishing. And it saddens me the most when people internalize it so much that they then feel that they have to engage in everything on every story they read, because they don't want to disappoint them or hurt them. It just takes the enjoyment out of the experience. And ideally, consider this an incentive that is a mysterious incentive that is trying to point you towards quality, spending more time writing, spending more time sharing and being nuanced, less time optimizing. Okay. Are there future plans to narrate their story? I mean, I would love that. It's really ultimately not a feature that a whole lot of people will use, but I think it's a really nice experience when it does exist. I know that some third-party apps allow you to do this too. So I would say if a lot of people started using third-party apps to do this, then we would take that as a signal. But it's something that we're looking at, because ultimately there's a lot of ways to experience writing, and sometimes through audio is the best. Okay, so we're getting close. Maybe one last question. Anything super controversial? No. I feel like we got some good ones though. Ultimately, I'll sort of summarize and wait and give it a few minutes to see if you want to ask one more question. But the changes, we added 77 new countries. We're getting, a big boost in enrollments, and it's going to lead to a more diverse set of writers on our platform. This isn't going to lead to lower earnings, because every new writer brings in more members. We're going to continue working on spam and fraud, because that's just always going to be a thing that we have to deal with. We are doing a lot of things behind the scenes that you may not see or in that stuff, because this is a problem that's largely solvable, that we just have to implement. We do want to invest more in stats and just give people the tools to understand what's making their story, when their story succeeds, letting them know. The philosophy of it is really a partnership with writers. We're trying to create a shared mission around incentivizing authors to write higher quality stories, a deepened understanding of the world, so that we can incentivize people to support writers who write this kind of thing, because it's valuable. And so creating an ecosystem where writers that do this kind of writing are supported and can continue doing this, which then incentivizes them to do more. And that's the general gist of why we are doing this. And yeah, I think that's it. I really appreciate like all the thoughtful questions here. And I see a lot of familiar names in here, and I look forward to following up with people on blogs and communities and hearing more about how you're doing. So thanks a lot for taking the time. I know this is late in the day, and we'll see you later.